Hammer. And her counterpart, Lori Levins, on the piano. Was that fantastic? Are we so glad to have them here? Do you feel God when you feel that kind of energy, that kind of field of consciousness of spiritual gifts in action? Happy Sunday. We're going to do something a little different today. I don't know if you got the memo when you woke up, if when your alarm clock went off it said you're writing the sermon today. Did it say you're writing the talk today? Lauren's did. Anyone else? Did you hear that when you woke up? Because you are. So welcome. If you haven't written a sermon before or a talk, raise your hand. If you've never done it before, it's your lucky day. So when you came in today, you got a card. And if you didn't get a note card, just raise your hand and the ushers will bring one. This is a fun Sunday because the talk is going to come from the questions that you generate. So anything that is on your mind that you want to hear about today, that you said, if I could pick my own talk for today, this is what I would want it to be about. Maybe it's, I've always wondered this about unity. Maybe it's something that is a specific struggle. How does one spiritually approach this or that? And go ahead and write it down. So now, if that gives you more clarity and you need to add anything to your card, go ahead and do that. Our ushers are going to come down and receive the cards. And I play this kind of like a game show. So you know, is it Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You know that show, right? Do you know the little piece where they say, I want to use my lifeline? And they get to call someone, that kind of thing, right? So that's kind of how we're going to be playing it. Like it's a little game show. Do you think that I'm scared of what you might ask? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see if I'm scared. But I'm going to start with, while our ushers are receiving the questions, and just know, obviously we're not going to get to all of the proposed topics today, but just know that they are going to be food for thought for the rest of the year and into next year. So it's great to know what is on our collective consciousness, on our collective mind, right, for our conversations. But I'm going to start with these two questions that were given to us online on the survey that was on Reverend Aaron's page. That's me. I always forget to say that on Sundays. But here's the first question that was online from the survey. It is, what does a triumph of spirit mean to you? What does a triumph of spirit mean to you? So my answer to that would be this. A triumph of spirit means to me that anything I thought I had to struggle to overcome, anything that I thought I had to work at, anything that I thought was too difficult to do, to get, to move through, to demonstrate, and I let go. And I watched the co-creative process. I watched the activity of spirit. I watched and was present to the divine appointments. And I overcame that. That to me is a triumph of spirit. Anything that regrounds and reroots me in the practice and recognizing that just this limited analytical mind doesn't have to approach life by itself. So I invite you on with these questions, too, to think about what does it mean to you. And maybe you have pencils in front of you, so you can have a pencil. Maybe you can grab something to take notes if there's anything that helps you today. The next question online was this. Why is everyone so caught up in paying attention? And anything goes for these questions. I still reserve the right to pick one up and say, maybe later. Maybe next time. Maybe not. May or may not read it to you before I say that. Why is everyone so caught up in paying attention to the messenger, Jesus, and not the message? Why is everyone so caught up in paying attention to the messenger and not the message? It's a good question, isn't it? I think rather than my looking at that and saying why people do whatever they do, I'm going to speak from the point of unity and appreciating that in unity, we do look at the message and the core foundation of what the teachings are, the teaching of inclusiveness, the teaching of love, the teaching of spirit being indwelling and expansive. And if I had to say why, I think sometimes it can be easier to point to something you see outside of yourself that's unattainable and say, there it is. rather than taking up the chalice ourselves and saying, here is a demonstration. There was a message in this demonstration. What am I to do with it? Because we know that that was the call, right? We know that spiritual teachers throughout the ages didn't live their lives in demonstration so that we could sit apart and say, wow, Mother Teresa, she was a great person. Right? Martin Luther King, nice philosophy. But Jesus, this and more shall you do. That's the message. And I do have a little thing that hooks me when we stop at the beginning of the teachings and the message and try to get to the advanced parts where we get judgmental about implementing them. Do you know what I'm saying? I think sometimes it's good to go back to kindergarten. If it started with love and unconditional love, loving kindness, sometimes it's good to stay right there and get that until we move on to thinking we know more and more about the ways to implement and more about what other people should do and more about what the truth is. It's good to start at the kindergarten level. Sometimes it can be a whole lifetime to master just that, no? All right. So, are we ready? If I could have the ushers come on and bring up the questions. I'm going to start this with just showing you a little toolkit. This is my little beach bag. So I wanted to share with you some good tools for the Unity practice. Now, a lot of us know a lot of the Unity books. Lessons in Truth is a foundational book. Charles Fillmore's book, Christian Healing. We have the Charles Fillmore book, Prosperity. We have Eric Butterworth's In the Flow of Life. So there are a lot of great Unity books. There is one that I have in my little toolkit that is Heart-Centered Metaphysics by Paul Hasselbeck. This one is a keeper for the Unity practice. It almost takes the majority of the teachings and breaks it all down and puts it in one space. Another great book, The Unity Movement, To Get the History by Neil Volley. Another good one, the Bible, sacred textbook. In Unity, we take the Bible as being the story of the evolution of Adam or Eve consciousness, that sense of separation consciousness, to the Christed or the cosmic or the unity consciousness, that consciousness that demonstrates God mind, that demonstrates wholeness. And we don't just look at the literal stories, we actually apply all of the tools of metaphysics. The way similar to you would a dream. If you had a dream and you might say, what aspect of this consciousness, what aspect of my consciousness was that person playing that part? That's how we use the Bible to metaphysically interpret. So numbers don't just mean numbers. Men don't just mean men, and women don't just mean women, and places don't just mean that we're actually walking to a place. It may be we're walking into a center of peace. And how metaphysically do I bring myself on this spiritual journey to attaining mastery in that walk to a state of peace? Well, I can open up this textbook, breathe, meditate, connect, use all of the science, use all of the history, use all of the support, and intuit a divine pattern for the unfoldment of moving in my consciousness from Adam or Eve mind, separation consciousness, into the Christed consciousness, the Buddha mind, the enlightened state of being. Does that sound good? I think I would be a better talk show host than maybe a minister. It's a fun Sunday. Okay. Really, I was just thinking that this Sunday. I was thinking, well, what if we just figured something out where I just got to come on Sundays? Who else wants to run the rest? The next is this guy. You all know him, Eckhart Tolle. So beyond just the Unity classics, right, we have those people who are embodying the principles of the Unity teaching in expanded ways, right? I am pretty sure this would be in Charles Fillmore's shelf if he was here. So we have The Power of Now and A New Earth. Here's another good one, The Shadow Effect. In case you feel like you've gotten stuck on the unity jolly wagon, the happy train for too long, and something hasn't resonated, that it's so much posy, where is the other side? Where are the other aspects of my humanity, and how do they come into play, and what do I do with them? The Shadow Effect is a book written by Deepak Chopra, Debbie Ford, and Marianne Williamson that goes into all the aspects of our being and how we can express these other funky aspects and how our collective consciousness can express these other funky aspects of being that traditionally people call darkness or evil or that kind of thing. The next is this book by Eric Butterworth, Celebrate Yourself. This is a great one because it has little nutshells on all different topics. So you can go chapter to chapter, and each one is almost like a mini book in and of itself. So that's another great one. And the next is this in my little bag of tricks, Deepak Chopra. And this is the video, but there's also a book. The book is The Third Jesus, The Awakening to God Consciousness, and this is the DVD. Jesus and the Awakening of God Consciousness. But it goes through the expansiveness, the evolution of consciousness, the evolution of spirituality and religion. And it's a pretty amazing documentary. So that is just a little bit of what I brought to share with you. And the last book that I have in here is Unity, A Quest for Truth by Eric Butterworth. It's a good foundational book, so you can kind of look at where we came from, get some really good nuggets on unity. So, are we ready to play? We've got a basket here. Oh, let's see. Where did it go? They're floating away from me already. Okay, wait. I'm too scared. I can't do it. I can't do it alone. I need a lifeline. Oh, my goodness. How lucky could I be that there are other reverends in the house? Reverend Kitty Benson, Reverend Therese Lee. Are we ready to have some fun? All right.
We love getting calls at about 8 o'clock on Sunday morning, and then we have to put our lipstick and our pantyhose on.
They said
I didn't bring mine, sorry.
Back in Chicago. Let the talk show begin. They said they were coming to church this morning, texted me in the morning, said they're coming to church. And I had thought to myself, how cool to be at the Village rather than to do it by myself. I should have called Paul Hasselbeck and a lot of people from the school. And then I get the text from these lovely lady reverends saying, are you definitely going to be there this Sunday? Because we're coming. And I said, yes, I will. And guess what? If you want to come play too. So here we are. All right, so I'll start with the first one. Here we go. That will be for you.
Okay, she's in charge. This is her church.
And we reserve the right to stick it back in and pick another one because you want to have it be nice and juicy. All right, Unity says when we pray, don't ask God for things. But Jesus said, whatever we ask for in prayer with faith, we will have. Help! All right. So, here's my take on this. Unity says that when we pray, don't ask God for things. But Jesus said, ask, and whatever you ask for, you shall receive. Jesus, the master teacher, taught prayer in a different way, in a radical and progressive way that is not so known today, I believe, that is not as much practiced today. Jesus, I believe, had a consciousness of his unity. That's why he said, I and the Father are one so much. I believe that he prayed from a consciousness that all has already been given. So it was less of an asking. Ask is a word, but I believe that Jesus' interpretation of asking was based on his practice. And his practice was knowing that unity, knowing that allness, knowing that complete infinite is right here, right present, and not something that you need to fold up a letter and, whisk it away and hope that you get something back in the mail to a God in the sky and hope it comes back to you in the mail. So I think a lot of times we short-circuit the system because we're actually not engaging that process of being so open and receptive and expecting our full selves to be part of that prayer process and part of that asking. So yes, ask and you shall receive. That teaching is based on that every bit of intelligence has already been given. Absolute substance is already everywhere present, accessible. It cannot be exhausted. It cannot be overused. So when we pray from that consciousness, ask and you shall always receive.
I would just add that I think the asking process comes because we require some form of setting an intention. This is a creative universe, and our thoughts create. So the asking requires us to decide what it is we're seeking to create in our life. And then trusting that, as Aaron said, the substance of the universe is here to be formed and fashioned with our faith and our imagination. Ask and you shall receive begins with, what is it that you want to create in your life? And then trust that the divine substance is ready to be formed and fashioned. But we have to give it some kind of framework to turn into, so to speak.
So the asking is almost asking ourselves as well as asking the allness, asking that's beautiful.
You have not because you ask not. So ask means get the picture going.
Yeah, awesome.
Right, and we have that ability to ask why or what. And in prayer, ask what. Go within, figure it out, and then as both of these ladies have said, see it pictured as so. And remember, it's on God's time, not our time.
So who wants to go for the next question?
How do I forgive? BTW, Rev Aaron, you're great. How do I forgive? Well, I'm in the 25th week of my new season in life, my new normal, since Reverend Tom has gone to be an angel. And I bet you would agree with me that every day I have to get to that point of forgiving him, forgiving myself, forgiving God. I've had some great conversations with God that use lots of four-letter words sometimes, or, So forgiveness is about giving for me. If you're mad at me, or I'm mad at you and you don't even know it, what good is it doing? So I forgive whatever it is that's on my mind, knowing that all is well. And it's never easy. It's this simple, and I would say it's never always easy. However, you give so that you have peace. I give so that I have peace, as opposed to beating myself up about, maybe if I was home, I would have known that he had a headache. Maybe if I was home, I would have heard him because he died of an aneurysm. How about I was where I was supposed to be at the time, trusting these principles, even when basically I feel my life sucks at times. To know that this too shall pass. So I forgive myself, and then of course I have to forgive Tom, because it's not mine to control his soul or his soul's journey. And then there's God, which is everywhere present. So if we believe the principles, we have to do that when we get asked up here to speak. And then also when maybe, we would rather have written the script a little differently. So we give for ourselves.
Thank you, Therese. Is this a divine appointment? So can you feel that? Feel this divine appointment? Okay. You want to pick one, kid?
I think that's yours because I can't control that one. That's a personal question.
She's not available.
Oh, here's one. I can do this one. What is Unity's take on salvation? What do I say to born-again Christians? I was one.
Divine appointment.
Yes,
again.
of course. Of course. I think for me, it was coming into a realization that, first of all, there's only one presence in the universe, and that presence is divine, and it is expressing as all that we see, including you and I. If God is everywhere present and is the only power in the universe, then that cannot be absent from our own beingness. Our being is an expression of the divine. And so rather than needing to be saved, and my initial dogma that I grew up with was that I was sinful in nature, I have come to understand that if God is the only presence, then I am God expressing. Take a breath. I am God expressing, and therefore my nature is divine. I've been made in the image and likeness of God. And so in unity, our salvation process is reminding ourselves, renewing our mind to that truth, that my true spiritual nature is an expression of God. And every time I remember that and allow the Spirit within me to do the work, I am experiencing my salvation.
And in unity, we believe that we are born blessed. Right. And if we're born blessed, there is nothing to be saved from. There's moments of illusion and there's moments of awakened consciousness.
And when I get asked that question, I say every morning when I get up, I talk to God and say, please help me get out of my own way. Because are we not always, or sometimes, at least in my life, I'm the one who needs to remember the truth of who I am, like Kitty was talking about. So, and I don't ever mean to be disrespectful, but I'll say, yeah, every morning I'm born again. Because if I wake up breathing.
I had a Sunday, too, where someone came to me after the service and said, I really hope that what you're teaching, what you're saying up there is right, because all of our salvation depends on it. And I said, oh my God. I said, I need to incorporate which one? Let's see, this one into every service. It's almost like we should all say it together as the second opening statement from Buddha. Believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who has said it. Not even if I have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense.
Right.
Charles Fillmore was the same. He said, if it is truth and if it is a principle, I can demonstrate it. So we come together to awaken each Sunday, to practice principles, and to put them against our own heart, our own consciousness, and our own connection with the Spirit that we call God and many names. And that is never someone else's to do for us. We don't teach in unity that you need an intermediary. We teach that you have absolute and direct access to all of your wisdom.
And not just the ministers, every single
That's
person.
Right. Everyone is a minister.
Everywhere, always, exactly.
Yeah.
Do I pick one of these?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I hope I choose the right one. Okay. This one says, pick me, pick me. I like you already. Okay. How can you help, or this person is asking, how can you help others feel God? I know He is present with me, and I don't know how to help others feel His presence with them.
That's good. Can I add one to that? Because this one's similar, one of the ones we picked before. How do you center yourself to be one with God? So these are really the same question in different wordings.
I would first say that I don't think God has a gender. Or we can say He, She, God, Mother, Father, God. And I think for us, what it does is it helps us, especially as women, not give away our power. And for men to realize, oh, it's okay if I wear a pink shirt, a purple tie, and if I cry.
The feminine and the masculine aspects of spirit.
Right. So how do you feel God? I met a gentleman this week. I was doing some mediation training, and he said, I don't believe in God. Well, he's with a bunch of Unity ministers. And we're not supposed to convert, but let me tell you, some tried to. And I said, so tell me what happened when your son was born. What did you feel? And he said, magnificently wonderful, so thankful for my wife, and grateful that all 10 toes and 10 fingers were there. And then I realized he kind of shut down. It wasn't mine to go on to say, is that not mean that there's God? So we have to choose, don't we? On, is this ours to make someone else feel? I don't think we can make another feel. Right? We can't change their mind. We can demonstrate how we feel. And that way then they may realize, oh, okay, so every time Therese sees a butterfly, she kind of gets excited. hence my jacket today, because I'm thinking, wow, transformation does happen. Something like that. So I think it's your presence, whoever asked this, that will in fact make another say to you, did you get your hair cut? Did you lose some weight? What is it about you that's so different? And it may just be, I've started going to Unity Chapel. I think Reverend Aaron is great. Or I started praying. I started counting my blessings every day. So by our example, we are the presence.
Thanks, Therese.
I would just add the heart math approach, which you're going to hear about, I guess, next week, right? It has changed my life, and that is consciously choosing to go within and bring to mind someone that I care about or an experience that I've had that's brought me joy, a memory of being connected to nature, and the energy that I begin to feel in that memory within my very heart, that warmth, is to me the energy of love, and it is the highest vibration that we can hold in our being. And when we are vibrating at the speed of love, we're vibrating at the speed of God, and that energy that you're feeling is feeling God in my life.
Excellent. And for some tools, you know, that concept that if you point to the moon and you're trying to help each other, trying to help someone, you can point to the moon, and do you want someone to worship the finger, or do you want them to look at the moon? You know, do you want them to stare at the finger that you're pointing with, or do you want them to experience the moon? And I think that's kind of what it's like when helping each other. We're all so unique and so individualized. I may have found my tool, and that may be in the finger that I'm pointing with. But if we get fixated on this tool and this finger, we miss the moon. And really all we can do is share our experience of the moon and be pointing a lot of fingers. That doesn't mean that they're all going to fit for all of us. For some of them, if you followed this finger, it's actually going to lead you wherever. What's the opposite, right? It's going to lead you in a different direction. It may even lead you to feeling disconnected. What fits for some doesn't fit for everyone. We are unique expressions of light. We are all divinely crafted, and in our birth, I believe that we all have a God language. When we are born, I believe that we're born with a God language. I believe that if you watch children, you'll notice what makes them come alive. And if you do a little backtracking in your mind to think, when I was a child, what kind of conversations, activities, places, experiences made me feel alive? Because when we feel alive, we feel God. And I think that's a key to tapping back into that, because as we get older, we can forget. We can forget what worked for us. And we're always evolving, so it's always good to try on new things and to say, is this my God language? Is that my God language? That's one of the beauties of Unity being so expansive and so inclusive that a Buddhist can feel comfortable. A Buddhist can call themselves a Unity person, a Jew, a Christian, a non-churched, someone that says they're not religious at all, someone that says they don't believe in God, but they believe in love, they believe in wisdom, they believe in intelligence, they believe in spirit, the spirit that lives everything. So I think that it's a process of learning ourselves, of opening up with the mind of a child and exploring. For me, and that's what part of the question was for me, I came to know the experience of God, because I don't know if we can ever know God, right? But we can know the experience of Godness when we feel like, I am in tune. There is so much greater going on, right? Going on than what I think or than what I see, and you just have that full-bodied experience. For me, it has come through my spiritual gifts. It's come through processing through music. It's come through throwing pottery. It's come through nature and holding onto a tree or camping or staring at the moon or putting my hands in a river or going to a folks festival like I'm going to next weekend. That's when I feel God. But that is something for each of us to experience with each other. So take a moment real quick and just share with the person next to you what's one way you experience God that helps you get grounded, connected, rooted, and feel it. Just share that with a neighbor real quick. Just one tip. Who's next?
It's your turn.
Okay.
It is your turn.
Colorado. All right, this one will have to be a sermon series, I think. Good
Well,
question.
she's looking for a question. You know, most of you, a lot of you know Dorothy Pearson. So when we got the call from Erin this morning, of course, I had to call and say, we're going to be at the chapel. And she's not going out and about these days. But she said to say hello to everyone. But she said, now remember, if someone asks you where God is, what will you do? And so this is what she does, in case you forget. Hello, God. Open your shirt, your dress, whatever you're wearing or not wearing, and see your heartbeat, like Kitty was talking about. Because that's how close God always is. And then, of course, she said, she'll see you soon. At 96.
So you guys, you really did a good job at writing some good questions. Can you give yourselves a hand?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome job at writing some awesome questions. Here's the last one. What does Unity believe about baptism? What does Unity believe about baptism? In traditional approaches, baptism is that it's a cleansing. It's a clearing of the negative, a clearing of the original sin, and it is also a process of naming a church and a name for a child, saying this is your faith and this is your practice. In Unity, we do believe that we are born blessed. So a baptism or a christening or a baby blessing, as it might be called, is a celebration of the family and the community of support for this child in a solid acknowledgement that this child is born blessed, that this child has absolute access to the beauties of the infinite universe, and that everyone there celebrating that child is making a spiritual commitment to help that child know this truth and to support them as they unfold their own truth. And it is not to take on Unity or any specific religion for a child, but rather to acknowledge that this child has an innate wisdom that will guide them to the right and perfect path for their unfoldment. So it's to recognize that we love you, we bless you, and we appreciate you just the way you are.
Amen.
So I want to thank Reverend Teresa and Reverend Kitty today.
Yay.
And thank all of you for writing the talk today. And in the Unity way, let us celebrate as we experience the next song, and let the next song actually activate the consciousness here to the next level as we celebrate all that is unity in the diversity and the beauty of the history and the now. I invite you to take your love offerings and tithes in your hand as we bless them with the offering statement.